Good morning, YouTube. Since I've been on YouTube, which is nearly 6 years now, the part of YouTube I've been in has been largely structured according to the theist-atheist debate, which is really interesting. It's an ongoing debate, it's fascinating, it's got lots of different areas to it. It's, it's a community which is very rich, I think, in many ways. But a lot of it hinges on the idea that theism and atheism is a meaningful distinction, that there is a real set of categories. There's a category of things called theists, and there's another category of things called atheists. Or else there's a category called theists, and if you're not in that category, then you're an atheist. And that makes a lot of intuitive sense. And people do say that. People do say that it's a simple dichotomy, a simple binary. If you're not one, you're the other. If you're not with us, you're against us, that kind of thing. I guess I'm thinking here of people like Bionic Dan's, but many others across, right across the spectrum of belief and disbelief, who make that kind of claim. If you're not a theist, you're an atheist. If you're not an atheist, you're a theist. There's only two places you can go with that, and those two states are separated either with a clear dividing line or with a kind of more fuzzy boundary. And I'm just thinking, is that a meaningful distinction in the first place? And if it is a distinction, is it a real distinction? Does it really carve the universe at its joints? Does it carve human experience in meaningful ways which actually reflect anything, or are these just statements? I'm beginning to think they're just statements. But to get to that, I have to think about what is the defining feature of that distinction. And I think for most people on YouTube, not as necessarily elsewhere, the defining feature of that distinction between theists and atheists is around the idea of belief. If you believe in the existence of a creator, let's say, or the existence of some kind of deity, you're a theist. If you don't believe, you're an atheist. Now, as I say, there are distinctions, uses of those terms which don't hinge on belief, but that's probably the most popular one on YouTube. And it's certainly the one that I've heard cited quite a lot. So that seems straightforward enough. You can hold a belief or you can not hold a belief, and therefore the categories hold. But do they really? I mean, is a belief really that kind of a thing that people can hold or not hold? Look, I've got a stick in my hand here. I picked this stick up as a prop for this video actually a little while back on the road. If a belief is something like an object, and that idea of belief being something you can hold does mobilise the metaphors of beliefs as objects, then it kind of makes sense. I've got this stick in my hand, and I can hold it, therefore I'm a stick holder, I'm a stickist, or I can put it between my legs, or I can not be holding it, in which case I don't have a stick in my hand, I'm an a-stickist. Yes, stickists, a-stickist. Clear distinction to do with the holding of an object called belief, or a belief-like object, or an object-like, whatever, Or even I can extend that a little bit to take into account the kind of fuzziness that some people have. Because some people say, it's not as simple as just holding and not holding a belief. It's holding a belief to different degrees of certainty, you might say. And if you hold a belief to, beyond a reasonable doubt, let's say beyond 50% certainty, or set your own figure on that, then you're in that category. And if you hold that belief with a lot of doubt, you've got some belief in it, but there's a lot of doubt attached to that, with much less certainty, then you don't. So then, to me, again, that's still mobilising objects. Holding a belief with certainty is a bit like grasping it firmly, and we do talk about firmly held beliefs, don't we? Firmly held belief. That's the metaphor right there that you're seeing that's being mobilised. A firmly held belief, as opposed to a belief that's tentatively held, or lightly held, or held with some tentativeness, or some this is the equivalent of a belief that's held with some scepticism and doubt. I could drop this belief. I could not hold this belief any longer. Yeah, so I think that's the general metaphor that's being mobilised. So, are beliefs like objects? That's the question. If that, given that this is one of the intuitions, one of the metaphors that powers that intuition, which tells us, yes, beliefs are things you can hold or not hold. Therefore, belief in a deity, non-belief in a deity, are things that either you have or you don't have. Therefore, theism and atheism really are separate categories. If that's the intuition that's powering the metaphor, does it make sense? Is a belief like an object? I don't think it is. I don't think our belief has that kind of structure. beliefs are much more complex than that, aren't they? And what are they exactly? Are they predispositions to act in certain ways? What is their relationship to statements of fact? And I suppose the way I'm getting into that, there's probably many different ways. I'll just get rid of this belief. Dispense with that. I'm now an a-skeptic. A stick-skeptic, I suppose I should say. Yeah, the way I'll get into making that distinction is to think about beliefs in terms of predictability. You know, how could you measure the existence of a belief or not? How can I test to see if that stick is really there or not? You know, I could test that whether that stick really exists by trying to hit somebody with it, or hit myself on the head with it. And I can make some predictions about that. If this stick really exists and I hit myself on the head with it, it hurts. If this stick doesn't exist, this stick here, and I try to hit myself on the head with it, nothing happens. Yeah. So I can testify to the validity of that stick by doing this. So I can test the validity of a belief, or the existence of a belief, whether a belief has a manifestation in the world, by making predictions about it. And some belief systems do make predictions about the world, which divide the world into two parts, and some just don't. The only example I've got so far, you can probably think of a better one yourself, is to do with peanut butter. It's come a long way from atheism and theism, and sticks, sorry about that. But, you know, there are those people who are allergic to nuts, aren't there? Who've got nut allergies, and there's those people who aren't. Who are, I don't know what, a nut allergy person, whatever they're called. Yeah, there's those two people. And I can ask people, are you allergic to nuts? And they'd say yes. And this other person would say no. And assuming they're telling the truth, that would give me some predictions about the world. If I gave them both peanut butter sandwiches, then according to their belief, according to their stated belief as well, different things would result. And I can predict those. I would predict that one would go into shock and I'd have to take them to the emergency room, and the other would probably say thank you. I could make those kind of predictions about the world based on their stated beliefs. And that kind of gives their status belief a kind of object-like status. I don't want to say objective, that's a little bit different. But it does give their stated beliefs a kind of object status in my world, in our shared world, in fact. Yes, they are allergic to nuts. You can hold that belief as certainty because I can test it over and over again. Keep feeding them peanut butter sandwiches, keep rushing to the emergency room. Is the same true about beliefs in the existence of a deity? Can I make predictions about any kind of consequence based on whether people say they're an atheist or say they're a theist? And answering those questions truly in the same way that people who are allergic to peanuts would answer that question truly. So if I ask you, are you a theist or are you an atheist? And you answer, can I make predictions based on your answer? Well, not necessarily, actually. I mean, I can make kind of guesses. I can make guesses that you might engage in certain practices. You might go to church on a Sunday, for example. And I can guess that. For some people, I guess that prediction would be fulfilled. But a lot of people, it wouldn't. Because, of course, a lot of religious people, a lot of people who are theists, either go to church on a different day, don't call it a church, don't go to church at all, regard the whole world as their church, would balk at the whole idea of a church. There'd still be theists, but that wouldn't, that has no predictive power in terms of who they are and what they do. And similarly with atheists, if you say you're an atheist, what predictive power does that give me in terms of understanding you? It certainly won't guarantee that you won't go to a church on a Sunday, because I know many atheists who do, because one of their friends is getting married, or because it's a quiet place to sit, or for all kinds of reasons. Would it be able to for me to make predictions about morality? If you say you're a theist, is it more likely, or is it inevitable, that you'll have certain moral actions will flow from that? Well, no, that's not true. There seems to be no correlation at all in moral terms between people who say they're atheists and people who say they're theists. None whatsoever. You can't use it as the basis of prediction in terms of people's actions. And in fact, I can't think of any predictive power that that classification system has. Other than this one thing, it predicts whether people will answer the question, are you a theist or are you an atheist, in a certain way. If people say they're a theist, what that means is that when people ask them the question, are you a theist, they'll say yes. Conversely, if someone's an atheist and you ask them the question, are you an atheist, and they're telling the truth, they'll say yes. So it seems to have that predictive power, but no other, as far as I can see. This holding a belief thing, beliefs aren't objects. You can't hold a belief. That's a metaphor, conceptual metaphor. Doesn't organise people's lives differently in any kind of way that makes sense. It isn't a dichotomy. I'm just not seeing the dichotomy, or to the extent that it is, it's just a dichotomy about what people write on census forms, when they're not putting Jedi down there, of course. So yeah, thank you very much from not so sunny Cornwall.